Okay, whoops. Sorry, I was balancing levels and yeah, well, I was soundchecking and I forgot I had left that muted. I apologize for that. Rookie mistake. I streamed once briefly a little while back and the encoding couldn't keep up, so I kind of gave up on that for a bit, but new Ryzen build, hoping it does a little better. So yeah, let me just kind of really summarize that sort of introduction spiel I was doing. Welcome Avant Mu in particular. I hope I'm not butchering that too badly. I basically do a whole bunch of stuff with Unreal related events, virtual production stuff, custom software, C++ development. I like to actually do gigs when I have them, which is fairly rare. So basically the plan is to just kind of have a bit of a chill stream. I just pushed a update out for my start, at least, of an Unreal fixture library that's sort of all done in C++ for performance and stuff. I just pushed an update to that out to patrons, so that'll be going out public in a couple weeks, and I'll just sort of poke around with it, sort of during the stream, answer questions, kind of, just kind of chill out a bit, really. And yeah, for anyone that's in the Patreon Discord voice channel, I'm looking in there. And yeah, if someone's in there and wants to hop in, they can do so if they're available. I let those guys know already, so we may see someone pop in. We'll see. Mainly I'm just going to kind of go over, sort of the updated state of the project as it stands, and sort of what should be going public in a couple weeks or so. Just checking my OBS here. Doesn't look like I'm dropping any frames so far, so that's a good start. The other thing too is I'm using sort of Unreal for the actual lighting viz, and I did a bunch of coding in Visual Studio in C++ for that. And then for now, I'm controlling that with, if I bring that up, grandma.2. Yeah. This has been something I've been working on and off and on for since about summer. Trying to at least sort of build the basics where I can start building out a small Unreal fixture library with it. So if I actually, let's see, bring these faders down and actually start up the Unreal viewport. You can already kind of see that there's some fixtures already moving around, but they're dimmed all the way down. So I can actually bring those up. These fixtures in particular, there's sort of one fully from scratch fixture in the library so far that I've been doing a lot of like back-end code and just making sure it's all really, really solid at this point to sort of provide a baseline to build other fixtures off of in terms of like the actual underlying code. So this is a fixture that I've modeled from scratch in Blender. This is a GLP Impression FR1. I personally find the GLP fixtures to be pretty cool, just as far as a random brand of fixtures picking out of a hat. And these also sort of work pretty well with are a nice fit in how their DMX profiles work. Because essentially, this is basically visualizing stage lighting, or there's some film variants for DMX lighting as well, and it uses a protocol called DMX, where you basically have a group of 512 channels that you just kind of send out over either a DMX cable or over Ethernet. Just push out 500 channels at once as a big blob of data, for every DMX update. And then those 512 channels can be, whatever you want, really. So then you have different fixtures which have different profiles. So these have like dimmer, pan, tilt, a mechanical zoom, which you can kind of see moving in and out a bit, and then also full RGB or RGBW color mixing. You also see some other fixtures that have color wheels. So then if I grab dot 2 over here, I also did bring in the the new Unreal 4.26 sample Sharpies made by the original fixtures are from Claypaky, and so this is the sample fixtures provided by Geodesic. Although with their new light beam approach, it looks very, very good, but it can blow out a bit, and yeah, it is pretty demanding, so I'm just gonna kind of turn that off, but it is sort of a nice quick comparison. These FR1s are sort of, and the library in general, I'm intending it to be more performance oriented, to sort of either be able to scale a few fixtures down to basically like a, you know, all the way down to hypothetically even a VR headset, ideally, or if you want to do like a big show with a lot of fixtures, then you can't have each individual fixture cost like a huge amount in terms of like the rendering cost on the GPU. So this is sort of meant to be light. I'm using some of the sample beams that were from 425. This is now 426. The library started on 425 with the DMX release, but I got the C++ implementation fully working on both versions, so I just ported the sample content over, and for what it is, it looks pretty good for being as performant as it is. And so, yeah, with that, yeah, even while I'm streaming, I'm still pulling a pretty healthy frame rate here. It really only falls apart when you start to do like triple digits of fixtures. I've only tested like lower triple digits so far, and it mostly holds up, but even these cheaper beams still become the prohibiting factor on like a fairly mainstream GPU. I've only got I've got a Ryzen 7 3800 XT for the CPU right now, and then a GTX 970 until I can get a hold of a new GPU, which, whether you have money or not, those are really hard to come by right now. Yeah, just checking the OBS again. It seems like watching the YouTube stream muted on another monitor, it looks, my webcam looks a little bit choppy. Let me just make sure game mode is on. Yeah, it is, okay. That's supposed to help balance the load of like running Unreal and OBS. What I can do is close out Resolume because I don't need that for intro graphics anymore. Yeah, Resolume is sort of the other major thing that I do, which is sort of live mixing concert visuals and writing some custom Unreal software for that. I don't have Resolume built out like for concert visuals on this computer, but you can sort of, you know, build a, you know, various different graphics with it for real-time playback, which is kind of nice, but that also eats some GPU, so I'm just going to close that out for now. So, hopefully I can keep the performance in check. If not, I can rearrange to some other computers if I need to for next time, because I do want to start streaming a little more regularly. The YouTube comments in general, and all of my socials in general, have been hard to keep up with over the past 6-8 months, so yeah, sort of doing some dedicated streaming Q&A. Yeah, no, the PC parts are very expensive right now, and but I mean, that's, even if you have the money, they're just really hard to get a hold of. I have the parts notifications, just like I get alerts, you know, for when stuff comes in stock from a few different messaging apps, there's some ways of tracking alerts, whether you're either through using your own bots or having someone else set up bots that don't necessarily go out and purchase anything, but they just give you a ping to, you know, go check. You'll have maybe a minute to grab something if you're lucky. Yeah, I've had a few chances to get something, but I haven't had money in my bank account at the exact same moment that happened, so it's a little bit rough, but, you know, you just optimize. You know, you just optimize your scenes and do what you can in the meantime, so yeah, I've got my basically fully C++ FR1s, and then I also have my initial implementation of FR1s, which were done fully in blueprints. These are much more expensive on the CPU, so I'm basically trying to phase those out. That was just kind of a prototyping pass, so and actually, while I'm here, if I eject, and basically, now I'm back in editor mode while the game is running, I can actually pop one of these open. And yeah, there's just kind of the fixture itself. Yeah, you'll note the blueprint graph here is completely empty, and in this case, that's a very good thing, because we have all of our functionality through these C++ code components. So we have one for each of the features that the light supports, and then we have sort of a function manager that actually manages calling their updates and dealing with all that stuff. These in 4.26, these aren't quite as optimized as they could be, even in C++. They're the best that's available with the DMX API of Unreal right now, but there's going to be an update in 4.26.1 where I can actually clean that up a little bit better even. So that should also be right around in line with a public release, hopefully. So yeah, and basically, I'm not sure. Do you have any experience with Unreal DMX stuff before? I know I've kind of built my channel on sort of doing some tutorials and then kind of a fixture library on that, but I got a whole bunch of client work as a result of sort of establishing this like YouTube platform and stuff. So I haven't had as much time to sort of dig back and update all of my tutorials as much as I might prefer. But if there's yeah, anything that you want to know about, I'm happy to sort of go into it. This is just sort of a, you know, time to just chill out and relax with, you know, the updated library and all that, so. Yeah, because right now, I'm just kind of overflowing with technology, basically. Yeah, okay. Yeah, fair enough. But I mean, yeah, basically, at this point, let's see, if I browse to the asset, yeah, at this point, having, if I go to my DMX libraries, of course I've got, you know, some stuff patched, both the Sharpies and the FR1s, which, I mean, yeah, you basically make a controller, you define your fixture types and their modes, and then you can go ahead and patch them. So then once you've done that, it's literally just a matter of finding a fixture you want. In this case, I've got the FR1s here, so I can just drag a new C++ fixture in and drop down to the DMX component, grab the library, and say I want that to be matching the first FR1 patch that we've got, and now it matches the first one. So the idea is, ideally it should get easier to sort of do, you know, kind of make a drag and drop a little bit more like actual professional lighting pre-visualization packages. And, you know, this is basically only the beginning, but yeah, I think it's pretty nice. So I can, yeah, just pop back over to .2 and bring the intensity up. I spent some time really tweaking and honing the Unreal's new, well, new as of like 2017 or 2018, but more modern implementation of a kernel-based FFT bloom, which essentially all that means, it's a lot of words, but essentially all it means is it sort of does a lens flare like a camera does lens flare in terms of how it renders bloom, rather than just sort of like taking a low copy, like the normal way bloom is done is you just sort of take a low copy version of the render, more or less blurred a few times, and then overlay it. Whereas this is sort of a smarter approach, where you can basically give it a texture, and it will do sort of bloom, lens flare like those textures. There's also the Unreal image-based image-based lens flares, which is not exactly the same thing. And you can just go dig through project settings and turn them on. And they do work, but they're a little bit gaudy and over the top in my opinion. So I just tend to turn them off, although they are definitely an option that people have to play with. This is one of those features that is on by default, actually, that sort of makes a game instantly recognizable as being rendered in Unreal. That in some of the that, and you eventually gain a feel for how Unreal materials exactly look that are subtly different from some other render engines. And yeah, I mean, it is fun to look at the image-based lens flare here when you have sort of the rainbows going across, but I think it is a little bit much personally, so that's why I typically have that turned off. But it is very nice how configurable all this is once you sort of have a feel for what you're doing. So now that sort of I've got the fixtures in here, yeah, I can right now sort of back out from this one queue that I had stored and sort of clear out the programmer. Oh right, that's just doing dimming right now. Yeah, so then if I pop over to .2, yeah, here's sort of that fader that I had controlling it. And I had rainbows going, and I just sort of cleared that effect out from the programmer, which basically the way lighting works in general. Oh, welcome Outdream Creative. Yeah, we're just kind of chilling out and yeah, playing around with the new yeah, the new version of the fixture library. So as far as what's in it, there was a lot of technical hurdles along the way and logistical hurdles between work and new hardware and a whole bunch of other things, but basically, as it stands, these are pretty much like what they are, but this is the full C++ implementation, fully completed and shipped. Patrons have access to it right now, and it'll go public on the repo in a couple weeks. So this has finally been the solid baseline that I've really been wanting to establish with the project, and then from there, it'll be really straightforward for me to just, you know, model new fixtures and, you know, throw them in there, especially if they use pretty much the same components. I'm still gonna mess around with more stuff with adding interpolation and some things like that, now that I've done some other experimentation and gotten a better grasp on that. Elsewhere, I've messed around with some strobes a little bit. Those aren't in here, but those are, yeah. So basically, it all comes down to I have the solid code base I've been after, so I can add more function components, add more fixtures, and yeah, this is really what I've been after. And I've also cleaned up the demo map that the project loads into by default to get rid of the NDI dependency. I tried to sort of include like a preset project for doing like virtual LED walls in the project too, in this particular like example project, but That was a bit of a nightmare from a dependency standpoint, so I just pulled it out for now. I may do something separate with that later. But yeah, also worth noting is, as it stands now, the entire fixture library stuff is all 4.25. I've done all of those updates in 4.25, and then I've also now ported the project to 4.26. So if I have a look at, yeah, I've got .2 going here. So if I dim down the FR1s again, I also do have the 4.26 sample Sharpies going in here. And they are very pretty, but they are also very bright and tank the frame rate when they're full screen. Like I said before, I'm running a Ryzen 7 3800 XT for the CPU right now, and a GTX 970 until I can buy a new GPU that's actually in stock somewhere. So yeah, just these new Sharpies is sort of some proof of, you know, this is up and running on 4.26. Those are just very heavy on a 970, so I'm going to turn those back off. Yeah, I've also been doing a lot of, just a lot of work behind the scenes, both in terms of the code and also sort of back-end logistical things, getting new gear, getting new software, and some things like that that I've been able to do from my like day job work with basically writing similar software, like similar you know, live events, Unreal adjacent sort of virtual production software for a day job now, essentially. So that sort of allowed me the budget to, you know, get a whole bunch of new gear. I've got a Denon Prime Go for testing DJ Sync stuff. I've got a Grand MA3 node now, so I can unlock MA2 and MA3. I haven't built out the show files for those yet, but so that's why I'm rocking .2 for the stream, but I'm going to be doing a whole bunch of stuff with that, and I've got a whole bunch of other sort of other software related technology that I'm using for well, not right this second, but that I'm working towards using to actually build out my the version 3 of my VJ tools, which is another project that I really want to get back into. And for anyone who actually hasn't seen my V3 VJ tools, that is actually my pinned tweet at the moment, but I can also paste that in stream chat. So that's right here. Where you can kind of see a video clip of, yeah, basically my version 2 VJ setup that was kind of in action. Basically, I built a VJ compositor inside of Unreal that's all MIDI and OSC controlled. And in that case, since I was running, like, even older and sort of more outdated hardware where, but I had like multiple PCs that were sort of about that level, I ended up building the VJ tool in such a way that it actually splits the load over the network. So you have one machine can run preview and another machine can run program if you want to. I'm not sure I'm necessarily going to keep that for V3, but you know, now that I'll have more powerful machines, but basically it was to sort of build the VJ compositor for Unreal, so then I can feed Resolume into that, I can feed real-time rendered Unreal visuals into that, and, you know, you can basically feed in essentially, you know, any other media server you want into it, and then composite that with real-time visuals, being the long-term goal. Yeah, it is. I've got about half a dozen on hand, and I'm probably going to be getting a few more now that I'm getting to MA2 and MA3 here shortly. Yeah, basically the APC40 in that video clip is driving Resolume just enough to sort of, you know, do BPM control and some minimal stuff like that. But then all of the, each layer of Resolume is a separate video stem that sort of bypasses Resolume opacity, and then that all just goes into Unreal and then gets mixed on the rest of those controllers there. So yeah, I sort of doing the Unreal lighting stuff is sort of what's given me a bit of a platform here, but in the long term, my goal is sort of a cohesive lighting and real-time visuals workflow where, you know, I can get a solid beat clock from the DJ decks, whether that's Pioneer, Denon, or, you know, as many platforms as many DJ platforms as I can reasonably support. And then from there, yeah, feed beat clock to Resolume and MA, and then, you know, have that be able to control, yeah, have MA from there be able to control, of course, lights, and then both Resolume and Unreal visuals. So, yes and no. It kind of depends on what exactly you're doing, insofar as, you know, that's effectively two media server setups right next to each other, for the sake of demonstration purposes, so I have some content to feed into Unreal. Like, I was, like, before I got into all this lighting stuff and sort of my platforms and stuff kind of blew up a little bit, I was, you know, hard pressed for time already. So I didn't necessarily have a lot of time to build real-time content for Unreal just yet. And then it's sort of only gotten a little more difficult in the time since then. But for a practical setup, it's more so you're kind of going back between sort of one media server or the other, essentially, where, you know, because it's basically the other media server is just that, a media server, as sort of another pool of media that you can tap into. Because, like, if you want to do like real-time visuals, you can do that all in Unreal. But then, you know, say you want to do some fun compositing with, you know, more 2D motion graphics, then using clips from Resolume sort of becomes really quite useful. To sort of bring those clips back into Unreal, or sort of do whatever you want with them from there. And you can, of course, go the other way. I just sort of wanted a little more fine-grained control of the entire pipeline, so that's why I decided to go Resolume into Unreal rather than the other way around. So, yeah, I've sort of got I've got my day job going, and then I've got sort of two major projects that I'm working on. The VJ software and then the fixture library, and all of that is to sort of eventually be able to have yeah, that hybrid lighting and real-time visuals workflow that I can just sort of easily plug into both a virtual production rig or a physically constructed rig. You know, that is really kind of the dream, right? So, and just also kind of staying on top of trying to be as close as I can to the cutting edge of concert technology in general, of course, and pushing it forward where I feel that I can, at least in some way. Some small way, at least. Sorry, that was a bit of a ramble, but, yeah. But yeah, that's kind of, you know, about me and sort of what I've been up to. So, yeah, I was just sort of messing around in the, updated fixture library project a little bit, and sort of showing sort of how you can just sort of oops, there we go, how you can basically just sort of drop a fixture, a C++ based fixture blueprint in, and then you know, patch it and it's up and running. Also, yeah, just in general, just because I haven't said anything in particular about it yet, yeah, I'm not really having any particular, I don't have a particular runtime in mind for the stream, just kind of hanging out for as long as people are around, more or less. So, I'll have to see. I've got, yeah, so I've got some stream music from Monstercat going, since that's one of the places where I'm confident that I can have stream licensing sorted. I've got Monstercat Gold set up, so right now I'm just playing that through their web browser app. Basically, as long as you know, copyright claims aren't a concern, I'm gonna try to keep it up. it's sort of a tough balance insofar as and part of it goes back to whether you should or shouldn't care about the numbers on YouTube. But if you do leave the stream archives up with low interaction, that can affect things. I might enlist it, and then sort of have a document that lists everything on the YouTube, on the GitHub repo, or I might just not overcomplicate it. In general, I want to lean towards sort of having things available, but I also sort of want to balance all the different things. So it should probably be up by tomorrow as long as it doesn't get claims. So I have whitelisted my channel. I'm just not sure if it kicked in yet. But also, the other thing that why I wanted to use Monstercat is I do have the Denon Prime Go, and I do have track metadata available in Resolume, and I've got some ways of getting beat grid out of it. So I can use the track download of the Monstercat Gold subscription and load those into my Denon Prime Go, and not just have stream music, but have beat grid. Welcome, Tetralites. I never know how to pronounce your name, but welcome to the stream. Yeah, so with a Prime Go, I can download the licensed tracks from Monstercat Gold and have those beat grid, and then I can basically screen capture the track metadata display in Resolume, as well as actually have live beat grid data of sort of the stream music, so we can actually sort of do fun visuals and lighting stuff with it. Is sort of the goal with that in the end. So yeah, as long as the stream doesn't get claimed, which fingers crossed it shouldn't, then I'll be able to have that stream archive going for you. Once the stream is over tomorrow or so. So. Welcome, Justin. I don't think I've seen you post in the chat just yet. There's not a specific limit to how much you can do in Unreal itself. Generally speaking, in terms of stage lighting in general, the limitation is typically more to do with either the network or processing resources to actually deal with the lighting and the lighting control traffic. Or more commonly, especially with real-life shows, the limitation is typically the number of essentially DMX parameters that your lighting console is licensed for. So, for example, .2, which I have on screen, that is a 100% free download that you can get from malighting.com. I think that's their website. And I can also put that in the stream chat. malighting.com. And I can actually link the download page directly. .2 is discontinued. However, was still getting software updates even as of the pandemic starting. It's just they ran out of physical components to actually keep building the consoles. Okay, yeah, so you're an MA2 programmer, so you're familiar with all that stuff. So basically, as long as your console has licensing, you're good. You might run into a bottleneck at the really high end in terms of network bandwidth, or more realistically, the compute power of your actual visualization computer. So, I've got pretty good performance with the C++ FR1s that I've sort of modeled and programmed. But if I pop over back to .2 for a second, and I bring the 4.26 sample Sharpies on, A, they are very, very bright, and B, it just tanks the frame rate because I think it's doing I haven't checked exactly, I think it's ray marching or something to that effect, from what I'd been hearing, sort of offhand. Basically the limit is, as long as you've got fairly optimized fixtures, in terms of doing a lot of their updates in C++, which is one of the goals of my library, and the Unreal sample fixtures sort of try to balance C++ performance with blueprint accessibility for the average Unreal user. So as long as you've got something decently performant, it's really just going to come down to first, lighting console parameters, and then second of all, how powerful your render box is, essentially. So, and I'm going to turn these Sharpies off because they just destroy the frame rate. So yeah, I just recently got a grandMA 3 2-port node to do on PC stuff with. I'd been using the .2 stuff to sort of get going and as an entry-level thing that anyone can just download Unreal, download the fixture library stuff, download .2, and sort of get going with it. But I am also going to be digging into MA2 and MA3 now that I've got that around, because there's a lot of show automation stuff that I want to be doing that will benefit greatly from having, especially MA3 as it matures a bit more. Yeah, that's kind of the plan where I'm at, you know, in terms of lighting consoles. So. Oh yeah, I'm not sure if my patron Jimmy is in the stream or not at all, but I just sort of messaged one of the sort of Patreon Discord sponsor channels here. So yeah, again, if any patrons happen to drop into the stream, you guys are totally welcome to hop into the Discord voice channel. That's yeah, in the Patreon Discord. If anyone sort of pops in at some point here. Oh yeah. If you go to the YouTube homepage, or the channel homepage, I believe I have a link to that. Yeah, I do have a link to that in the sort of the links that you can put in the upper right of your channel page. I normally put that in the, you know, all of the socials in general in the YouTube video descriptions, but this is a stream, so that's set up a little different. Yeah, if you do want personalized help, I do definitely try to go out of my way to, you know, help patrons a little more closely, you know, as they have issues or, you know, whether they, you know, want a small feature implemented or, you know, just want to have help with something or, you know, whatever the case may be. You know, I've definitely been staying really busy with work. And when I started this, my hardware was like way more outdated than it is now even. So it was always just sort of a struggle, both in terms of work and in terms of the actual like, the amount of friction actually sort of, you know, doing C++ development, waiting for a code compile for like, you know, a minute or two, testing booting up Unreal, testing the change, closing Unreal, going back to the code, making a change, and sort of that iteration time was really long and really painful for a while. But I have been able to sort of get a new computer, and that has helped the iteration time massively. So yeah, my hope is that I can sort of just do bigger and better things in 2021 in general. You know, now that I've got a lot more hardware and a lot of new software tech, some of which I can talk about and some of which I can't. So, and yeah, now the stream chat's been popping up a little bit more as the streams picked up a little bit. I was just kind of poking around and showing off the new fixtures and sort of dropping a new fixture in and patching it. But I didn't really get too much farther beyond that, which is perfectly fine. Before I started streaming, I'd been thinking about maybe building sort of a new stage rig in Unreal. I'm not sure how far I'll get with that if I keep responding to questions, which is kind of, you know, the main goal of the stream. So, I don't know. I might crack open a new level here just to kind of poke at things a little bit. You know, as in between questions and such. What would I want to do with this? Because, yeah, I do have, yeah, I do have some straight and right angle truss meshes in here from when, from some other experimentation. These are just, global truss models I got from their website and, went through a slightly painful optimization pass through Blender after, having them start in Autodesk CAD format, which was kind of obnoxious. But... So yeah, I could mess around with some truss and some of these lights, which, yeah, I might do, I think, in between questions here. Yeah. Yeah, at this point, now that the stream's, sort of getting a little bit more established. Let's see, let me shuffle windows around a little bit. And I have way too many things open here. Okay, yeah, looks like we're about 45 minutes in. Yeah, I might go for another... I might do like 2.5 hours. If things pick up later, I might do 3 hours. Lasers. So, as it stands, well, I've got Unreal open here. Let me go to Unreal. Okay, yeah, I've got... Let me switch to Unreal in particular, and have a look at the sample content. Yeah, in general, lasers is a hobby that's a bit too expensive for me. I've got some friends who are into it. I know, you know, most of the laser control softwares can do some DMX stuff. Although I've always understood lasers to kind of have their own protocol, which is sort of not necessarily covered by the DMX plugin. Let's see, where is the DMX fixtures content? Yeah, I mean, you might have a look at the laser module. I'm not sure if it's a DMX. Yeah, okay, it looks like it's a DMX-controlled laser. Yeah, so basically, as it stands, if you wanted to do lasers in Unreal, someone would have to actually sort of go ahead and implement, like, you know, the Pangolin protocol or whatever they use, because yeah, because, like, there's the old school, from what I'm remembering of lasers, there's the old school analog ILDA interface, which is fairly universal, but very much analog. And then there's, I want to say Pangolin sort of has their own sort of network-based protocol, although, again, I'm not a laserist as of right now, so I don't have too much experience with that. Yeah, basically, you would need to either implement ILDA or implement, you know, the Pangolin protocol as another Unreal plugin, essentially. You know, that's something that I'm definitely interested in seeing happen. It's not something I'm necessarily equipped to tackle, both in terms of, you know, pre-existing knowledge or necessarily sort of the time to invest into that. But I am very curious to see if someone does more with lasers with Unreal, because that would be very cool. I do want to get into lasers eventually. It's just, this is just expensive enough of it as half a hobby, half day job already, so. Yeah, I mean, I definitely have a look at the BP laser module if you haven't already. If you can do laser control over DMX, that'll at least get you started with something. Yeah, that's just a whole... Lasers are just a whole other thing. A very cool thing, but a whole other thing nonetheless. Yeah, and yeah, fireworks and pyro are also kind of their same thing. Sometimes, on rare occasions, you'll see pyro and such that's controlled via DMX, although, you know, the general rule of thumb is consider don't. And when you do, you have, like, control channels and then a dedicated ARM channel, so that's at least a slightly sane way to do it, although that kind of shouldn't be DMX, realistically, from a just overall show control safety standpoint, but yeah, in general, I'm kind of focusing on lighting and visuals, although, yeah, of course, when you're in Unreal, visuals can also kind of mean anything you want it to be, really, so we'll see as I have more time to dig into things. Yeah, just sort of as both my VJ software mature and the fixture library matures. Also, for anyone, yeah, that's sort of not familiar with my VJ software, I posted it up in the stream chat a minute ago, and I'll paste it again here for some new people. I'm not gonna do the whole spiel again, but it's basically I made a MIDI/OSC controlled VJ compositor inside of Unreal so that I composite it with Resolume visuals and real-time rendered Unreal visuals that are rendered to a render target. Or you can bring in any other media server you like and composite that with Unreal visuals is sort of the long-term idea. So that's not out yet. It's gonna be quite a long time probably before that comes out, but I do have the fixture library that I'm sort of trying to work on and sort of push updates to as frequently as I can manage, at least. So catching up on chat here. Yeah, there's not too much. Grab .2 again. I actually don't remember if MA3D has an export option. So if you are a Grand MA3 programmer, the MVR format is a thing, which is a description. I would liken it to so Pixar, the film VFX company, make a file format called Universal Scene Description .usd format, which is basically a universal interop format for basically 3D scenes for basically film and VFX to sort of go with their RenderMan renderer. And yeah, there's the new MVR format, which is sort of, I would basically say it's the lighting version of Universal Scene Description, where it defines the entire rig in an XML format. It contains GTTF fixture profiles for each fixture type defined in the rig XML, essentially, and then it also includes all of the actual like 3D models of, like you're talking about, of like, you know, fixtures, truss, whatever. So as long as the actual visualization software that you're bringing that MVR file into actually has all of the fixtures that you're using programmed by the developers of the visualization. Whether that's, the L8 devs or the Capture devs. Well, I guess Capture said they're not going to support it, but yeah, whether it's L8, I'm not sure if WYSIWYG supports it. I'm not sure. I don't remember if Depent supports it. Unreal doesn't support it right now, but that is like a very, very common feature request on the Unreal side, so we might see it at some point. Unreal does support GDTF already. So basically, if you can either export an MVR or some XML of the positions of all of the the fixtures and truss and everything, it should be possible to do. The functionality doesn't exist right this second, but yeah, that should be possible in the long run. And I think that's something that most people doing like serious lighting stuff with Unreal are gonna want. And at least a chunk of those are developers, so one would hope that'll happen eventually. I did have a contact at one point who was a Vectorworks trainer, so I did have them forward an email to Vectorworks at one point to one of the devs, but that sort of was a black hole, so I think that's basically going to come down to probably Geodesic and Epic pursuing that if and when they want to, just because they have a little more pull to sort of get access to the code libraries to make that happen. I have pulled apart a sample MVR file, and it is literally just as I describe it, a zip file with extra steps. You can get 7-zip to extract an MVR file with some complaints, but you do get sort of the output XML, like the thumbnail image for the MVR, and then like all the GDTFs and all of the models that are embedded in it. And so like you can actually get all the component files out. And so in theory, you could write an MVR importer for Unreal without even having like the official Vectorworks code libraries to officially support the feature. And that's something I've toyed with maybe writing myself, but it's not a feature that I would want to ship to anything, to anyone, just because that is super, super janky and like unofficial and all that stuff, and like it definitely wouldn't be up to my personal standard of quality. Although, yeah, as long as you can actually get some XML of the of where everything's patched and where everything is, you can pretty easily write the functionality in Unreal to do it. So even if I didn't write a full, say, MVR importer, I could potentially write an importer for the XML data itself specifically. Pre-extract the MVR, and then you have all the CAD model, truss models and stuff that you can bring in with Datasmith, and then you could have, you could write an Unreal parser to, basically you bring in all the truss and stuff with Datasmith, then you write sort of a plugin, like a custom Unreal widget, Unreal editor widget, essentially, like, if I go over to content, editor widgets, like for example, there's a blueprint widget, which is it's pure blueprints. Geodesic have theirs. Patrick sent me sort of his screenshots of his blueprints before the Unreal Fest talks, so I'd gone ahead and written my own version of it, sort of as a learning exercise, essentially, for dealing with Unreal editor widgets. Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure. Like, the easiest thing is going to be, like, the first visualizer to actually, like, fully implement that pipeline. I think Vectorworks Vision already implements it, if you just want a visualizer that supports it right now. Otherwise, just have a look at the pages for, all the major visualizers that you can think of and see if any of them are advertising that yet. Vision is sort of, I think, the first one to implement it. But yeah, basically, you can write an editor panel like this, where you can basically link all of the Unreal mesh assets for like all of your truss pieces to their entries in the XML, and then from there you could sort of have the editor panel just rip through and instantiate all of the actual truss pieces and mesh and stuff, lights and stuff, and patch them sort of in all the right locations. So it's doable, but it would be some work. If you want it now, use Vision probably. Yeah, so I can, oh, and I think this is not the latest version of this that I have. Okay. Oh yeah, I should push out that update too. I've got another updated version of the patch panel asset that lets you choose whether or not you want to sort of patch, like select a group of fixtures and patch them to, you know, sequentially increasing patch entries, or I have one where, or I have a version of it where you can switch the mode to have them patch all a bunch of fixtures all to the same patch entry, which that is not this version here, which I will remedy that off stream and probably get that pushed out along with the update. So yeah, so then I can grab like if I, so right now these are fixtures 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, up through I think 9. So I could, based on the order that you select them, so I could select all of these fixtures in reverse order, choose the library, and choose the patch, and then patch them, and now this one, if I grab the DMX component, is fixture 1. I can do that again the way they were originally. Whoops. And then, yeah, now once again, this is fixture 9, so. Let's see. Just reading chat again here. Also, in general, I've got, you know, a handful of people here. If people have suggestions for stream safe music in particular for me to use for streaming for, you know, using alongside lighting and visuals and, you know, actually like doing some like actual like Resolume and like Grand MA programming on stream, yeah, I'd be, you know, interested in any suggestions people have. For now, I'm just using Monstercat Gold, and for next stream, I will see about getting that set up with my Prime Go so I can get both track metadata to capture onto the stream, with sort of the Resolume metadata integration, as well as some stuff I've been playing with personally for getting beat clock out of the Den index as well. Yeah, and you know, you guys are all welcome for the videos. And likewise, thank you all for the support and, you know, the Patreon and sticking by me. The fall in particular was really, really challenging as far as both some technical challenges and some... Yeah, okay. Noted. Yeah, also, like, my background is, like, the My Little Pony, sort of, convention and, Conrave, sort of community. I used to work for BronyCon back in the day, hence, and doing stuff with their concert, so my wallpaper here, is actually, yeah, for their final year of the event last year for BronyCon, I basically did some LED wall previs in Unreal before the DMX integration was a thing yet. That was pretty fun. Unfortunately, by the time we actually were on site, we had to move the cold sparks to in front of the LED wall sections on the ground instead, because one of them would have been pointing directly at a fire alarm. So that's some fun gig stories. But yeah, now I'm sort of doing yeah, and so of course on the pony side, I do have tons of musician friends and stuff, and you know there's some you know, bedroom pony labels and stuff along with that, but and I may do some streams that use, like, I want to do some timecode shows that are pony related for some stuff, you know, with music made by friends, but you know, for general purpose streaming, I do want something generally a little bit more generic like Monstercat, and they at least make it easy to license, so that's kind of the game plan for now. And then, you know, as a bonus, it's a streaming service or whatever, where you can also download the tracks and load them on the Denon, which is gonna be really nice for some programming streams later, because I do want to be streaming a bit more, just as a way to interact with the community a bit more, as an alternative to you know, keeping on top of YouTube comments and just some of my other socials in general, because those have gotten a little bit overwhelming over the past 6-8 months or so. So I'm not able to sort of respond as well to, you know, just generic comments, messages, and stuff. But, you know, for anyone that, you know, wants to throw in for Patreon, I definitely do my best to really go out of my way to help you guys where I can. And you know, for people not doing that, then the you know, doing some QA live streams is a nice way to just spend some time and just sort of, you know, dedicate some time to responding to questions and giving some updates and being able to just dive in on the spot and show how to do a thing or whatever, if people want to, you know, learn something in particular or have a question that they want answered. So that's sort of the goal of this stream, and I think I do want to do these somewhat more regularly, maybe at least monthly, if not maybe a couple times a month, but we'll see. And also, yeah, in the future I don't necessarily just want to, you know, sit here on my Unreal projects mainly answering questions. Oh, yeah, thank you so much, Justin. Yeah, definitely feel free to, you know, bug me in the Discord or whatever off stream and whatnot. Or yeah. So, yeah, and as I was saying, in the future, I do want to do kind of more than just mainly just kind of sit in with the Unreal project open, but you know, we'll kind of see that over time a little bit. Did I break my patch here while I wasn't paying attention? Misclicking. Oh, yeah. I grabbed the wrong patch entry here. But I patched these to the Sharpies, so let me just patch these back to the impressions. And yeah, I had a feeling it was going to be this way. I'm very happy with the stream name that I went with, because there has been way more than 4 digressions in the stream. There I said the thing, I made the joke. So if I grab... Yeah, if I grab the impressions, now those are patched correctly. Maybe. Yeah, no, I highly recommend having one of the patch panel assets, widget assets that's lying around, either from me or from Geodesic or whoever, because this makes patching fixtures much more usable when you can just do things in bulk like that. There we are. Now those are responding properly. So there I can override my current queue with sort of the dimmer, or I can double click clear to clear that out and go back to what the queue is. Yeah, and here's where, before I was messing around with, you know, the stereotype, the meme, of just doing rainbows and those with an increased BPM, and I can mess around with, there's some base position cues here, so by default they're just kind of pointing straight up, but so yeah, basically this is sort of, you know, the core of a show file. I don't think this particular show file is public, but you know, enough where if you basically MIDI map this and organize your cues a little better, you can you know, basically bind these buttons and faders to MIDI controllers, and then you can basically, you know, operate a show that way, whether that's a physical rig or a virtual rig. Yeah, as long as you don't point these straight at the ground, they look pretty alright. Yeah, I'm really happy with how the bloom came out on these once I spent some time to really dial it in. Yeah, also, I'm not sure if I'll necessarily post about it, post too much just on socials in general about it, but yeah, I do actually have a stream gig coming up mid to late February. No, actually. It's funny you mentioned that. I first modeled these FR1s back in back in July, as sort of the first fixture that I started with my start to a C++ fixture library. Yeah, basically, you know, the result of the first month of working on the project, and sort of I launched the Patreon back at that time. So sort of the first month of result of that was basically these FR1s on the end, which looks the same as the others, but it was basically back then that I modeled the fixtures, this FR1 from scratch in Blender myself, just using references, and then actually coding the fixtures as a first pass in Unreal Blueprint, which, granted, that's not amazing on performance. So now I've, with a lot of time and hair pulling, I finally got things, like, I got like 90% of the way on the C++ fairly quickly, but after like several months of hair pulling and other logistic stuff, I finally sort of got the last 10% of, you know, the full C++ implementation of these fully shipped out and ready to go. So yeah, I can just pop out to the editor, browse to the C++ FR1 and drop it in. Yeah, thank you. It was actually going to be faster to model these from scratch than actually than to actually like try to clean up the official CAD models like from GLP or whatever. Because yeah, CAD packages do not care about mesh topology at all. And no, I've not used them in real life yet, although they are fairly cheap, so I might consider that in the future. Because I think they're like a pan tilt zoom beam with infinite pan for like 1,200 a pop or so on new lighting, which for what you're getting, that's not bad. I have seen some people express some concerns about some of the durability of like the mechanics of them, but yeah, overall they're pretty neat. Also, what's the I'm trying to remember the name of the there's also been a bunch of really tiny infinite pan and tilt fixtures that Christie's just been dumping in bulk. Yeah, some of my friends picked up some of those as Christie's been getting some of those over really the past year or so, and maybe even longer. And those are really nice. I'm trying to remember the name of those. I could dig up through my chat apps if I wanted to, but I don't want to do that right this second. Actually, yeah, let me really quickly I think I might know exactly where they were. Yeah, I mean, from what I've seen, they look pretty nice as long as mechanically they hold up. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, yeah, right, the Elation ACL 360Is. Yeah, those are also pretty cheap and pretty good for what they are, because they are small and, pretty fast. I don't have any of those either, but, yeah, one of my friends had them and, was doing some stream sets with them recently. You know, along with a whole bunch of other fixtures. Yeah, right now, we've just got a couple, like, shove a, color band pick some USBs around as just tilt bands that right now are basically just lit up as holiday lighting in sort of the front window. Or I guess not anymore, the holidays are over, but I don't think we've also moved them just yet either. You know, and those are also pretty decent for a just very cheap RGB tilt band. Yeah, I do want to invest in yeah, I do want to invest in some physical lights myself at like a moderate scale at some point, but for now, I know my way around Blender and Unreal, so and especially now that I have both .2 and MA2 and MA3 via the MA3 node, it's kind of better for me to focus on building out my building out my show control setup and my software control setup for everything, as well as coding some fixtures as I think of them. And then, yeah, once I have that built out, sort of after the pandemic, and there's a reason to actually like use lights for gigs, then I might, you know, then I might consider investing in some more physical lighting. Yeah, also looking at, yeah, one of the Discords where people were talking about FR1s earlier today. Yeah, seeing a picture of someone with, you know, holding one with a hand for scale, those really are tiny. I didn't realize they were that small. Although, yeah, in theory there should be. I just haven't done it yet exactly. That's something that I should be able to do at some point here. Yeah, basically these are complete other than shutter and infinite pan. As far as like the features you'd actually use in visualization. But now that I've finally gotten through that painful last 10% of the C++, now I'm actually at a point where I can just kind of focus on, you know, building out my VJ software a little bit like I talked about a bit before, and also just sort of being able to work on like modeling and coding new fixtures, as well as yeah, adding more function components that are like pure C++ function components. Because you'll see if I open one of these, the blueprint graph is fully blank, which is excellent. And so I've just coded these modules in C++ that actually give it the behavior. So yeah, I can make a infinite pan variant of this honestly fairly easily. Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, okay. Yeah, the other thing that I was kind of briefly glancing at, just in terms of like, okay, you know, getting the most usable light in terms of like maybe like something of a versatility standpoint per dollar. Yeah, those ACL 360s are probably up there. The color band pixems are pretty decent. Maybe not all the way up there, but they're pretty good. FR1s are a bit more, but to have that wide mechanical zoom along with the infinite pan, like those would be pretty good on a tier list. Shoot, lost my train of thought there. Yeah, also the Chauvet Intimidator trios was another one I was thinking about. Because I mean those are like 600 to 900 between new and used or so, and those yeah, they're basically like the comically tiny version of like a X4, like a GLP X4 style fixture, not the X4 bar batten, but the X4 washes and stuff. Well, I mean they're kind of a hybrid fixture, but yeah. Oh yeah, I bet. Yeah, I mean if the FR1s are that small, they're not going to weigh all that much. So yeah, I could see picking up a handful of those up at some point when we're doing more physical gigs, or maybe like it's either physical gigs come back, or I get good enough at DJing to where I do like some of my own stream gigs where I want to do like a physical set. But for the most part, now that I have MA3 and I'm like, you know, good with Blender and Unreal and Visual Studio and all that for coding, I am gonna get more bang for my buck if I sort of do a virtual stage that way. So another thing that I should actually probably do is look into setting up a Google form for what models of fixtures in particular people want to see, because I can go off kind of what I want in particular, but I do want to, in the end, have input from other people, both in terms of recommendations and also at some point open up the Git repo so that other people can pull request their own fixtures, especially once like I have this first set of and I just realized you guys can't see, let me go over to, let's see, turn off my webcam and then go to Unreal. There's the yeah, so that's kind of the goal in the long run, is basically I make these fixture function components. Yeah, mega pointies are really good, but they're also quite complex, and one of the weak points of Unreal right now is aerial effects, which is sort of the main thing that those are like really, really known for. But yeah, basically the goal is to sort of make full C++ function components, and then you can basically attach these to basically a new blueprint with, you know, new models, and there'll be some naming conventions and documentation to follow so the code can, hook into those assets properly. But then you'll basically be able to make a new blueprint, sort of set it up in the viewport, like so, and then attach these components and sort of have that all work. So then, once you just have that set up, you just drop one of these in, grab your DMX library asset, and go to your DMX component on the fixture, and then you can either patch it here. There you go, it's patched. Or you can patch it with one of the patch panels either from me or from Geodesic. And so, yeah, the idea is that it should be simpler in the long run. And then, I'm also, of course, only me, so, I'll do what I can. But in the long run, I also want to sort of set up a way for people to be able to pull request the Git repo. And if there's a fixture that you want to make where it could work just with these, then, yeah. So if there becomes a way where you can, get away with the function components that I've already made, yeah, I basically want to have a mechanism where you can pull requests and at the very least just submit me the models, and then I can probably throw it together really quick, and also be able to troubleshoot the code if there's any issues. Or ideally get the components polished enough where, and configurable enough where, yeah, people who just know the basics of Unreal that have the models can sort of bring those in, follow some documentation, and make a new blueprint that just sort of gets these attached and set up. And then in theory, it should just be able to work. And then once that blueprint asset is made, that gets pull request to the repo, and then it gets added, and then people can, add that to their collection and start using it is sort of the long-term goal. I'm not necessarily expecting my library to be that be-all, end-all repo or fixture library by any stretch, but personally, I want to focus on very performance-optimized fixtures that either you can ideally handle, a handful of those comfortably on VR, maybe even mobile VR, or on desktop be able to scale to a much larger concert rig using, those lighter weight fixtures, because if you're doing a lot of fixtures, you have less render budget to go around per fixture. So, that's actually something where some of the geodesic sample fixtures are already a decent start. I'm running the 426 version of the repo right now. So in the 425 sample content and also the 426 sample content, they did make a strobe asset, which I don't have the profile set up for it right now, but I believe it was basically a old school Atomic 3000 essentially in terms of the features. Potentially. Unreal is definitely a lot more customizable. So if you really know what you're doing, you can really dig in and optimize the performance a lot better than, closed source commercial visualization packages. But that also comes with drawbacks too, in terms of, you're almost starting from scratch on the fixture library, and such. But yeah, to that point, as far as some of the stuff they do have this, and that was in 425, and I guess it is just a wider spotlight. So yeah, it's basically an Atomic 3000, and then, oh wait, that's interesting. So in 4.25 they used a point light, which is a spherical light. Let me go where it's dark. If I grab let me just grab that fixture. Excuse you. Oh, okay. Yeah, there's some minor bugs with some of these. Okay. Yeah, so the 425 version of this light used what's called a point light, which is basically a spherical light, where if I zoom out a bit, you can see there's basically a sphere radius, and then you can basically control how big it is. So in 425, they basically had the strobe basically be kind of like that, give or take. So that's decent. I guess for the 426 version, they have switched it over to a beam, which is an interesting decision. In the 425 version of this library, which is on Get, I did actually add a patron request, basically do a RGBW color mixing version of this, of the strobe, of the default strobe essentially. I have not ported that to 426 yet. I'm going to have to look into that a little bit more. Ideally, I'd like to sort of get a strobe on my code base as well, which these are just 3D models, so I could, you know, reuse the model and sort of do something with my own code base as well. Yeah, right now I would probably do the point light approach from 425, because that tends to, especially if you have volumetric fog on, that kind of that does blow out nicely, in terms of how you would expect a camera to blow out, at least approximately, when you point a real camera at a real strobe in haze. But also, not to be... When I say, you know, volumetrics, not to be confused with this, I do not have volumetrics on. These are the new, I think they're Raymarch beams that they're using for the new sample beams in 426. These are very heavy on the GPU. These will not be any better than, yeah, as far as, like, speeds and curves and stuff, that's something that, goes along with, adding interpolation features. Right now, I just have things updating on the DMX update itself. If you look at some of the official sample fixtures right now, those will have those do have some of those modes in there already. Yeah, so there's like, oh, okay, so they do have some quality settings in here that are a little better. Although that is still using the same technique, so it doesn't really look as good on, if I needed to scale things down, I would probably not scale down quite this way. But yeah, here you can see if I select one of the fixtures, one of the Sharpies that I did not make, they do have properties for intensities, and I think if you dig into it, they do have... at least in 425, they had some speed parameters for like maximum like pan or tilt speed and things like that. That's something you can definitely do. It's just a matter of when I do interpolation on every game frame rather than every DMX update, then those will just be limitations applied to how it interpolates. Because if you're doing anything other than jumping directly from one state to another, you need to somewhat define how quickly the interpolation happens. So having some properties for how fast a fixture moves would be sort of how you would do that. So that's totally doable, and that is definitely on my radar to have in my stuff as well. Yeah, these Sharpies do look excellent. They're just a bit heavy for my taste. So that's why I've got some of my stuff that I'm messing around with, because, and I went with FR1s, just because they're, as close to a generic pan tilt zoom as I can really think of, while also having a real-world analog where I don't have to make custom fixture profiles immediately, like for MA or for .2, for MA2, for MA3, whatever. So, and once again, I'm going to turn these back off. Also, yeah, that's 10% intensity. So, yeah, that's a bit overpowering. So I'm going to turn those off again. And then... just catching up on chat here again, seeing if there's anything. On a default fixture, I'm not super familiar with the sample fixture code base in 4.26. Not sure about... I remember more about 425 because I've spent more time with it. I don't quite remember. In general, it's definitely doable. If I pop open Blueprint, just in general, literally anything, there is a... There is a blueprint node here for adding local rotation, where you basically just give it a component like the yoke, and then you add local rotation to the yoke, where you'd basically give it some rotational force. Oh, that's add force. Add local... Yeah, add local rotation, here we go. So here you could add some small increment of, like a really small increment of rotation on a DMX event, essentially, whether that's, you know, go left or go right, infinite, sort of in those infinite pan tilt profiles. And then you can make that increment bigger or larger based on the size of the DMX value in each direction. So in principle, yeah, that's a fairly straightforward feature. It's just a matter of how exactly you go about it. This is sort of the baseline of what you would actually use to accomplish it in Blueprint, and then there's a C++ equivalent as well. So yeah, it would be pretty doable. You could probably like sort of make an evening or kind of weekend project out of doing that. Sort of making a fixture, like a variant of a fixture that does infinite pan tilt. So yeah, that'll happen eventually. Yeah, no problem. And let me get rid of the strobe. Yeah, and actually, at this point, having a look at the time, I could use the bathroom and some dinner fairly soon, so I think I may call the stream around 6 or so. I definitely want to do more of these streams, so just as a way to yeah, interact with the community more than I have been. And hopefully also be a little bit more transparent. in my process and such. Oops. Yeah, and at some point, not all the streams are probably going to be exactly like this. For a new release, it kind of makes sense to just open up the editor and kind of show off what's new and answer questions. In the future, I may probably also do some like lighting console programming streams and like Resolume programming streams and things like that. Programming in the show context rather than the software development context. You know, where I've like pre-prepped a stage rig that has some lights on it, and I've got some virtual LED walls set up, and you know, to just do some lighting rig programming essentially some of the time. I've thought about doing, and even a long time ago tried doing some like actual software development streams, but it's really hard to stay on task and be productive on those personally. So I'm probably gonna stick to doing my actual software development off stream, but answering questions, going over new features, doing some console programming, you know, I think that's all fairly safely fair game for streaming. And then, yeah, in the future here, I'll get my Prem Go up and running as well, so I can have the stream music playing back from that with a beat grid, so I can grab the track metadata from Resolume to overlay that on the stream, and then have the lighting console and Resolume rig, and even Unreal visuals even, able to be synced to the beat grid, and even the jog wheels of the dead end decks I've got, so... Yeah, there are some exciting things that I've got in the pipe, but just wanted to chill out a little bit today. Having a look at OBS here, happy to see no dropped frames, so that's good. If there's any stuttering, that means it is purely because in a particular moment the GPU is a bit overloaded. But also that's also why I'm looking to you know, do lighter weight stuff, is so that things can actually hold up a little bit better when you're trying to, you know, live stream a lighting rig as well. Anything you can do to sort of make either the encoding cheaper or the actual initial rendering cheaper definitely helps a lot, so... Also, glancing at the stream dashboard page, I see just about everyone so far has sort of updated the stream on YouTube, so yeah, thanks for that. Anyone else have any questions or, you know, just topics they want to talk about in general? Yeah, I do have to say, I am quite excited to dig into Grand MA 2 and Grand MA 3 now that I have the node on hand here. Both actually. I mean, it's more so atmospheric. Well, so I guess it kind of depends on if you're asking about the visualization or the actual real-world physics of it. In the real-world physics side of it, it's basically the interaction between the light from the beam interacting with, you know, the atmosphere and particulate suspended in it, like actual haze fluid. On the Unreal side, it depends on the context and different implementations. The beams on the FR1s here, doing the rainbows, those are just some static meshes with DMX controlled materials on them, shaders essentially. Whereas you also have Unreal Volumetric Fog, which is, and I'm not gonna turn it on and kill the stream, but let's see. If you go into visual effects, if you want to mess around with it, I believe it's. I think it's exponential height fog. Yeah, and then there's a tick box down here where you can turn on volumetrics. And then there's a lot of tunables, and there's a whole bunch of setup involved, both on the. Yes. Well, right here in .2, I've got dimmer control. So, but yeah, on the Unreal side with the fog, you basically turn this on, and then there's some other properties and cleanup you got to do to get the whatever implementation of fixtures you're using to get them to really play nice. And there's some in the Unreal command line console, which when you run the game, it's the tilde/grave key above the tab key on your keyboard. You hit that once or twice, and you can get some console commands. And there's a whole bunch of different stuff. So there's, of note, commands under r.volumetric fog, where you can control a lot of the properties of how it's rendered to optimize image quality against performance. Yeah, I played around with that last summer, and there's definitely some cool stuff there. It is also just very, very demanding. So I don't really do too much with that. And then there's the new sample Sharpie fixtures that are provided by Epic and Geodesic Games, who made the plugin, where they're doing sort of a hybrid approach, where I think it's sort of my understanding that I've heard kind of secondhand is basically that it's a Raymarch shader, although I haven't really looked too much into it, and actually it does have noise like Raymarching, so that's probably what it is. And it does look very good, but it's just very expensive, so that approach is sort of doing volumetric fog in a way that almost bypasses Unreal's traditional volumetric fog system. It's similar, but not quite the same. And again, I'm going to kill those because they eat all of the performance. But yeah, also here, I've also got MA3. So if I go to, yeah, output session, see. Is it gonna work to demo it? We will see. It would probably help if I... Yeah, I need a session. I'm so not familiar with MA3. Oh yeah, station. Yep, so that's in a session. Oh. Okay, yeah, I need to mess with some network stuff later. Alright, I'm not going to do that now, but... Yeah, I've gotten up and running with MA3 and MA2 just long enough to get the node in session and get everything unlocked to output parameters, so... but that was on one of my other computers, so... But yeah, no, I'm very excited to dig into Grand MA more fully than .2 though. .2 is definitely quite usable for just a universe for free, with a pretty reasonable learning curve in my opinion, but there's definitely a lot that you can do. Especially with some of the bigger consoles. Yeah, I'll probably go ahead and wrap the stream in about 10 minutes or so. These models do look absolutely fantastic, though. I do just, these models look great, but, unfortunately Sharpies being, the old fixtures they are only have color wheels, so... When you can have proper color mixing for busking, it makes it so much better. Hence me going after these as soon as I reasonably could get started on that last summer, so. My model is definitely not as detailed, but I think it's detailed enough for what it is when you're going to be looking at it from like out here, so. Yeah, I think maybe for the next stream I'll maybe actually put together a stage rig ahead of time to actually mess around with some of this stuff in terms of programming and such, stage programming. because I have done, I've gotten set up with a nice workflow for doing virtual LED walls. So those are individual meshes. In this case, actually, you definitely could do the approach you described in terms of having a rigged mesh, a skeletal mesh, as Unreal calls them. Although that actually costs more. There's more CPU load in dealing with that, because it's actually it's basically trying to like deform vertices and such and doing that level of calculation. So in this case, I just used a handful of different static meshes that are basically in a mesh hierarchy. So yeah, actually in the impression blueprint, yeah, here you can see the base, the yoke, the head, and then the lens mesh assembly, which the FR1 in particular has a mechanical zoom to it, so this assembly moves up and down and takes the beam along with it. So yeah, in this case it was best to just be able to rotate the yoke based on DMX, tilt the head based on DMX, and then zoom the lens assembly in and out based on DMX. You could definitely, have a workable solution either way. It's just, in this case, it's generally more performant to do it as static meshes. Yeah, and then also, yeah, on the subject of, like, maybe some next future stream stuff, as far as putting a stage together in advance, I've also got Resolume for doing visuals. This particular computer, I've just, I don't have it set up with a full Resolume production concert visual setup right now, which I need to rebuild my Resolume configuration, because my production Resolume laptop is getting a little bit long in the tooth, but yeah, for a future stream, I can get going probably ahead of the stream, before the stream, with a lighting rig already put together, with some virtual LED walls. And then I found it's actually really nice to, like, define like a bunch of slices and shapes in Resolume, like a triangle or any other shape you want to make, and then you can actually make your full like festival style LED wall configuration in Resolume, and then reset this. In the menu here, you can actually export that configuration straight to an SVG vector image, bring that into Blender, and then basically turn that straight into UV unwrapped geometry for a virtual LED wall. So that's a really nice workflow that I found. I haven't done a gig with it yet, but I have been messing around with that. So there's definitely some ample opportunity to do some show programming streams. They are. I've just been refining them much better, in terms of like, mainly the code in particular and getting that moved over to C++. Visually, all of these fixtures look identical, but the three on the right are using blueprint code, whereas the sort of set of 9 that I have in the middle are purely done in C++, which means their performance is far more scalable than it would otherwise would be. So now that I have this nice baseline, in terms of having these fixtures with script components for different features and functions, then you can put these in principle on another fixture with different meshes, and with some tweaking make that work fairly straightforward, and then add more function components to add more features, so then that sort of has established a baseline where then you can much more easily Granted, it's still active development work, granted, but you can sort of make a bunch more fixtures from there that way. So, having laid the groundwork to do so. So yeah, this particular version should be going public in probably about a couple weeks or so. If you look on like any of the other videos that I have, the GitHub repo is linked in the description for those, and then I can also just paste the link in chat again. Yeah, so when that link, so when I push that public in about 2 weeks, patrons have access to it right now. When that goes public in a couple weeks to that particular repo, then yeah, all the stuff that you see here will be in there except for the .2 show file. But yeah, I will probably update the show file as well. Sort of, yeah, update the show file that kind of ships with the project now that I've been shuffling the sample map around a little bit. And yeah, no problem. Glad to help and contribute, you know, to the community in any way that I can. And also, likewise, thank all of you guys for your support as well. Like, it's basically been the establishing the platform that's allowed me to do the day job work that I'm doing right now, as far as doing Unreal adjacent virtual production software, like AV software development, as a day job, which is actually able to fund the gear upgrades that I've been able to do, which is basically going to go right back into the channel. Same for the money from Patreon and all that, being able to sort of, you know, help make this stuff happen. So yeah, that's all super appreciated as well. So thank you, everyone. And also thanks everyone for tuning into the stream as well. I wasn't necessarily expecting too much, but it actually turned out pretty well, I think. You know, all things considered, for just being pretty off the cuff. And also, yeah, just also it's about 6 o'clock, and so yeah, I am probably gonna wrap the stream very shortly here. One thing I did want to say before I go, I said it initially a long time ago, in the actual, like, the first video on this channel, that you know, I go by Lexi. My pronouns are she, her. Just, well, you know, there's a handful. Most of the people who had tuned into the stream are still watching at this point. Some people trickled in late. I am transgender, and I go by she, her. My voice does not pass. I'm not going to pretend that it does. But just to sort of, you know, mention that again, because it's been a little bit. I don't sort of, you know, I tend to focus more on just the technology, both software and hardware and all of this stuff, because I'm, you know, a little bit too obsessed with it maybe, but that is a thing that, you know, I do want to sort of be a little bit more clear than necessarily is, because I don't necessarily talk about it all the time. So, yeah, I think that just about sort of covers this stream. Is there any, like, closing one or two last things people wanted to ask before I go? Also, it looks like, yeah, my Monstercat playlist also just ran out too. I had it on shuffle, but without loops, so. Next time around, I should have that moved over to the Denon Prime Go, so that should be better. I'll give it another minute or so to see if any more chat messages pop up. I've heard bits and pieces of the Quartz subsystem, but I haven't really looked into it too much. Although it is worth noting that everything that's available in Unreal Blueprints is also available in the C++ API pretty much. So Quartz is definitely something I do want to have a look into. In general, though, C++ is definitely the way to go for performance, and especially as long as you've got an active C++ developer sort of working on things and making sure everything's tied together neatly. C++ is definitely the way to go, in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, you definitely could do that. And actually, more so what I'm interested in doing is deriving beat clock from the actual DJ decks, whether they're from Pioneer, Denon, or whatever platforms I can support. And then I can use that to drive procedural animation, both in Resolume, in the lighting desk, in any Unreal Engine rendered visuals, all of that. And also like be able to tie that in with like MIDI or OSC step sequencing and sort of get really kind of fancy with the things that you could do with a busk show. Although all of those same things would apply to doing a fully curated AV show that's driven off of, say, Ableton Live. So yeah, I'm definitely thinking in the vague direction that you're talking about, although using some different technology to get there, that's also applicable, not just to sort of Unreal Viz, but also that which can translate to a physical show as well, once those are a thing again, hopefully. So I'll give it probably another minute if there's a chat, and then I'll probably call that for the stream for the night. So for now, I'm working solely in Unreal. Well, that's actually not exactly accurate. I'm not into Touch Designer or Notch right now, but sort of my goal, aside from lighting, is building VJ tools inside of Unreal. So that's something that I have posted. I have my pinned tweet right now is an actual demo of the version 2 of my VJ tools that I'd made on Unreal. Basically pulling in layer stems from Resolume, where Resolume is literally just playing back media on different layers, and then Unreal is actually doing all of the compositing work, controlled by MIDI and OSC and all that, and physical MIDI controllers and such. And so sort of my goal is sort of unified visuals, basically having real-time visuals that you can composite with offline rendered like Resolume visuals if you want like flat 2D motion graphics mixed in with your real-time graphics aesthetically, and then from there basically tying that in with pulling beat clock from the actual Pioneer or Denon DJ decks, and then basically messing around with that beat clock data enough to where you can basically pull that into a lighting console like GrandMA, and then have GrandMA be able to control lights, real-time visuals, and pre-rendered visuals, all together with a unified beat clock, and mess around with like MIDI and OSC step sequencing and all that fun stuff to get into some really fun busking stuff. Or basically doing that, but driving it all directly off of like an Ableton Live AV set instead, essentially. So Touch Designer and Notch are definitely similar tools to have sort of in your tool belt that are useful. Touch Designer especially. But my focus in general has been sort of over the past, since January of 2018, seeing what I could do to make Unreal viable for visuals, because at that time it wasn't really. It had basically everything you needed to do really awesome visuals once you got the AV protocol sorted. Now, 2 years of engine maturity later, or I guess now 3 years of engine maturity later, it is in a much better place to where I think it's actually going to be viable, and we're starting to see people doing some, both some like stream lighting rigs, yeah, basically lighting previs sort of stream shows with it, and then yeah, basically, and also some people getting around to messing with Unreal for also some actual real-time rendered visuals, which is where the overall direction of sort of the VJ scene is going in the long run. Yeah, so okay, how did I get started with all of this Unreal stuff? That is a long story that I'm going to very quickly summarize, and then I'm going to end the stream. So yeah, basically I got into it, Unreal itself, about 11 years ago now. Basically, while I was still in high school, sort of I picked up Unreal Engine 3 as soon as Unreal Development Kit first came out as free to the public. I transitioned to UE4, learned a bunch of game dev, and then 2015, 2016, 2017-ish, I started getting into like audiophile stuff as a hobby. And then that eventually turned into my friends dragging me into getting into convention AV, wherein I ended up doing both concert management and like VJ stuff and some software development mixed in, for basically doing yeah, running concerts and visuals and stuff for some fairly large fandom conventions. This wallpaper that I have is actually some previs that I did for BronyCon 2019, which was the last year of the event, where Unreal didn't have lighting viz in it yet, but I had virtual LED sorted at that time, so I used that to make a executable for basically VJ previs, essentially, not lighting previs, but VJ previs, and then I was able to just compile out an exe of that previs, send it to the other VJs, and then they were able to just run that without having to worry about like licensing, some commercial lighting visualization software. I was able to just send them an Unreal build of the thing that I'd made in a couple evenings, and then that was that, and it was great. And it was my time with working with that event that sort of put me on that path to getting into visuals in general, and then asking myself, okay, how, if I were to make my own visuals software, what would I do? And actually, Unreal has been really underutilized for that. So yes, it's the hard way around compared to Touch Designer in terms of protocol support, but I'm glad I did it. And that, because now Unreal is in a much better place where you can actually do some serious stuff with it, if you do some custom development. And yeah, so now that I've done that, I've got that experience. I've got sort of that version 2 VJ tool, which is almost production viable. And then, in the coming year or two, I've gotten a lot of hardware and software technology to sort of tie together my overall vision of how this stuff should work, to where I can actually sort of build out the V3 side of this stuff. So yeah, so I'm not necessarily... I do want to stream more regularly. I'm not necessarily going to stream active software development. In terms of, yeah, it's just way easy to go off the rails on a stream for to be able to maintain like the the mental models that you're building of the code as you're writing it. That's just not really going to be viable. But as far as like doing Q&A streams, showing off new features of the library as I add more stuff, maybe showing off some of my VJ tools as I get more into that a little bit, which those aren't releasing anytime soon, but the goal is to release them eventually. And then yeah, basically do basically show stuff that I'm working on, stuff that's updates to the fixture library as it's out or about to go out, and then also I'm looking to do some like either lighting console or media server kind of show programming streams where I put together a stage rig before the stream, and then program on that rig on the stream sometimes. So I'm thinking at least monthly, maybe twice monthly, but we'll kind of see. The last time I tried streaming, my computer could not keep up with the encoding, but it looks like I haven't dropped a single frame this time, at least on the encoder. So as long as I keep the GPU load in check, then it should be much more viable this time around. So yeah, at least monthly. So I'm not sure on the exact timing of the exact schedule, but yeah, I am looking to stream a lot more because I think the stream went pretty well for how off the cuff it was. So I think that just about covers it for everything I wanted to talk about, and I think that's about the last in terms of chat topics. So yeah, I think that I'll call that here. Thanks everyone for watching, and I will hopefully see you on another stream, or at least on another video. So see ya. And where is the dashboard button? End stream. Boop. End.